double shift the day before, taking inventory at the hardware store, so his boss had given him the day off. Yvonne hadn't taken time off from her job in months, so her friend and owner of the bookstore, Jake, hadn't batted an eye about her request and said tending the store would give him a break from farming out in the heat. It had been great sleeping in, and now a nap. Maybe today would be the day they conceived. They'd been trying to have a baby since they'd been married. But even as Abraham pulled her closer, Yvonne couldn't shed the worry that had built up about Eden coming to stay with them. Things would be very different here in Montgomery, Indiana than in California where Eden was coming from. This Saturday. Chapter 1. Eden checked her text messages as she slumped into the backseat of the cab, hoping Emma had given her enough cash to pay for this long ride to her new home for a month. She'd already been in the car over an hour, but her cousin certainly couldn't have picked her up at the airport in a horse and buggy. She felt an air of excitement about visiting a new place, although as the scenery became more and more rural, she wondered what teenagers did for fun here. Farms lined the 2-lane road they now drove on, and she hadn't seen a Walmart in at least 40 miles. "Sir, can you tell me how much farther?" She straightened, leaning closer to the front seat. "Only about 5 minutes." The older taxi driver cocked his head to one side. "Maybe a little longer. It's been a good while since I've been out this way, but GPS seems to think it's only 5 minutes. Eden took a deep breath as she glanced at the butterfly tattoo on her left hand. It was significant and meant something to her, but she suspected her cousin wouldn't approve. She'd removed her nose ring at Emma's insistence, and she'd changed out of shorts and a tank top, also at her cousin's recommendation, before she'd left. Now she wore jeans, a short-sleeved red shirt, and flip-flops. It was July, too hot for jeans, but apparently the Amish were conservative, and Emma wanted her to make a good impression. She would only be here for a month. Did it really matter what these people thought of her? Somehow it did, she decided, if only a little. Eden wondered how much Emma had told Yvonne and her husband about her mother, and about Eden's own problems with the law. She'd probably told her everything. Eden sighed. How cool it would be to go somewhere where no one knew anything about her. A place where her background didn't shadow her like a bad dream she couldn't wake up from. Her pulse picked up when the driver pulled onto a gravel driveway that led to a farmhouse. She could tell it was old, the way the front porch wrapped around it, the shutters on the windows, the general look of it. Like old farms she'd seen in movies. It was beautiful. Sunlight reflected off the plush green grass in the yard, and the flower beds were filled with colorful blooms. When she stepped out of the cab, the smell of freshly cut grass wafted up her nose and took her back to a time in her life when she'd been a little girl. And happy. There were no neighbors that she could see. A big red barn stood off to one side of the white house, with shutters the same color as the barn. Eden had never ridden a horse, but she could see a tail swishing back and forth inside the red structure. 2 buggies sat parked close to the white picket fence. This might as well have been another planet in comparison to where she was from. Her cousin and her husband came out of the house wearing the kind of clothes Eden had looked up on the internet, a big baggy dress for Yvonne with a bonnet on her head, and a funky haircut with cropped bangs, along with suspenders for her husband. Their attire didn't surprise her, but Yvonne's overall appearance did. Even at a distance and without any makeup, her cousin was pretty for someone older in her 30s. Eden paid the driver and tried to ignore his scowl. The ride had been more than Emma had estimated, which left only enough for a $2 tip. The guy spun his wheels a little as he backed out of the driveway, sending a whirlwind of dust everywhere. Eden waved her hand in front of her face, picked up her bulky red suitcase, and headed across the yard. "I've got that." Abraham met her in the yard and eased the luggage from her hand. Eden had been worried more about him than Yvonne, but his blue eyes brimmed with kindness. At least that was Eden's initial impression. Maybe he'd be okay. She believed you could tell a lot by a person's eyes. Max's eyes always blazed with icy contempt when he was angry, which was a lot. His glare grew more brazen when he was in a bad mood. Eden's insides braided into knots each time, just before he smacked her across the face for back-talking, as he called it. After a slight shiver, she pushed the thought aside, opting to believe that Abraham was a nice guy. Aren't all Amish good people? "Thanks," she said to Abraham as they walked across the yard toward the steps to the porch, where Yvonne stood waiting. "Thank you for having me."